Ross Coulthart says there's big things coming. Chuck Schumer talks the new UFO legislation. We have stabilized footage from a great UFO sighting and a lot more. It's time for another UFO news roundup, so get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Okay, first up, let's get right to it. Let's get to what Ross has to say.
I think we're at a very interesting point in history here, because I do know that within months there are going to be very senior serving or former officials coming forward to talk about what they know, as well as legacy program witnesses coming forward to give first-hand evidence to the Congress, in addition to the evidence that's already been provided. At some stage there has to be a tipping point. And I guess, frankly, the White House has to decide whether it wants to be on the right side of history. And to me, the fact that Senator Chuck Schumer passed that legislation, pushed personally with his endorsement, that extraordinary National Defense Authorization Act amendment, which talks about non-human intelligences over 20 times. The fact that such legislation has gone into the book is enormously significant. I think we're about to see a shift. I'm not saying that the White House is going to stand at a lectern and suddenly start talking truth, but I think that at the moment, what people don't seem to realize is that even very, very senior officials in the Pentagon and the intelligence community aren't briefed into this stuff. I mean, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, the other day admitted that he didn't know anything about a crash retrieval or reverse engineering program. My sources are telling me that the chairman of the JCS doesn't know. He hasn't been briefed.
So there you go. Big things are coming. We have whistleblowers coming out of the woodwork. As Jeremy Corbell says, they are locked and loaded. They are ready to go. They are armed to the teeth, says Jeremy Corbell. And now Ross Coulthart is backing that up, saying, yes, indeed, we are going to have more whistleblowers. We are going to have more stuff coming out. People have been talking about more hearings. Looks like this is going to be a really, really juicy next few months, or at least the next 6 months, let us say. And I can't wait. Bring it on. But Ross does talk about Chuck Schumer and the new legislation, so I think we have to hear from Chuck Schumer and see what he has to say for himself. Okay, let's see what Chuck Schumer has to say when asked about the new U.A.P. legislation.
I'll tell you, the truth is, I have not read the report. I have not gotten a briefing, but sunlight's the greatest disinfectant. Lots of people say they're disclosing it because they know something that we don't know. Well, let them disclose it, and we'll all know the truth, and we'll be better off with the truth. And then I think of my dear friend Harry Reid, you know, we would sit together and discuss this, and he had a more view of UFOs and foreign, outer space intelligence being more likely than I did. But I love talking to him about it.
Okay, all right, we'll take that. You are neither confirming nor denying the existence of UFOs.
I'm for those sunlight, and let's see what happens.
Okay, so Chuck Schumer is for sunlight. He's for sunlight being the great disinfectant. He's for transparency, so all of that is good. It doesn't sound like he's much of a UFO guy. I wouldn't expect him to be, but he does seem like he's influenced by the great Harry Reid, who was a UFO guy and who really did more to push the ball forward than just about anybody else. If not for Harry Reid, we wouldn't be having our current era of semi-disclosure or whatever it is. So hats off to Harry Reid. There's also been some indication that the White House is now getting involved in this, and that Chuck Schumer may be putting himself out there because he has the backing of the executive branch. So that is very exciting. It's a little bit alarming if you're like me and you're worried about the establishment coming in and covering all this up and controlling the narrative. You know, that's where my mind goes. But at the same time, there's some very positive indications as well. The White House Joint Agency, whatever it's called, UFO program that really hasn't been making a whole lot of waves overtly, may have been doing some stuff behind the scenes, and they may have been a big part of what has been going on recently, per my recent video, if you've seen that. So there are some very, there's reasons for optimism, let me say, and it doesn't matter if Chuck Schumer is a UFO guy or not. As long as he is genuine about transparency, that's what matters. Meanwhile, speaking of Jeremy Corbell, he has some very strong words for Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick in the recent letter that Sean wrote. Let's listen briefly to an exchange on the UFO podcast.
That letter to me read like a letter from someone who knows he's on the way out, and it's the death throes of someone in a role that they know is that they're biding their time. Either they want to go and it's a let go of me letter, or they're just kind of kicking the furniture over on the way out.
Good, get out of there, because we have people that actually are patriots, and people that actually serve the country, and people that actually know that the American public not only has a right to know, but has a need to know. So, yeah, whatever, man. I'm sorry, cut that out if you want, but it makes me pissed.
Yeah, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick has got Jeremy Corbell pissed. He went on several really good rants in this podcast, and I highly encourage you to go watch the full thing. It's very entertaining to see Jeremy get all worked up and get really ticked off. And he definitely saved some of his ticked offness for Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, and particularly the letter he wrote, the scathing letter that he wrote regarding the U.A.P. hearing. Speaking of U.A.P., we now have stabilized footage of the Aguadilla, I think it was taken by Homeland Security footage. Correct me if I'm wrong on the Homeland Security thing, but that is my recollection of this event. And it was acknowledged by the government as being genuine U.A.P. footage, and it has now been stabilized for our enjoyment. I wish I could make it bigger, but that is the size of it. At least my big head isn't cutting it off. So there we go, this crazy UFO. They're trying to track it. It's going pretty fast. It's really booking. Why can't they lock onto it? I guess it's just going too fast to lock onto. But not too fast for the camera to pick up, which is interesting. Why can the camera pick it up if they can't lock onto it? Or maybe they're just not trying to lock onto it? I don't know, guys. If you guys are military guys and have some insight into what's going on here, let me know. Okay, here they go. They zoom in a little bit for you. You can see the shape of it a little bit. Looks weird looking. And I'm not going to play the whole video, but I will link to it and you can check it out at your leisure. But here we go. We have stabilized footage of a highly interesting U.A.P. encounter. Speaking of UFOs, we've got more UFOs. Here's one of the latest UFO videos to make the rounds. Looks kind of like a meteor, but wait a minute, it changes direction. Here we go again. Yeah, it's only like 11 seconds long. But there you go. You can clearly see this thing changing direction. So is this one of those fireball UFOs we've heard about? I did a video on them about a year ago. The fireball UFOs, which could have been what they saw in Las Vegas. Since I'm kind of leaning, I'm on the fence about Las Vegas, but I lean toward that being a genuine encounter. I think the preponderance of the evidence supports that that was a real ET event or non-human event. And if that was the case, that object they saw in the sky was probably not a meteor. It was probably something like that guy. So here's one more piece of evidence we have for the fireball UFOs, if indeed that's what that is. Okay, last but not least, we have a really interesting experiment that Robert Bigelow is talking about that was conducted at Skinwalker Ranch. A really great interview with Jeffrey Mishlove. The other day I showed a clip of Robert Bigelow saying that looking into Skinwalker Ranch was opening Pandora's box for a lot of people, and they just didn't want to go there, or he didn't want to go there, and even talking about it. And if he did, it would be a whole show unto its own. Well, Jeffrey Mishlove actually did take him up on that. They didn't go quite as deep or weird as I was hoping they would go, but it's nonetheless a terrific interview, and I highly recommend you watching it. I'm fascinated by all things Skinwalker Ranch. They talk about the hitchhiker effect, and it's just a great interview. But here Mr. Bigelow is describing one particular experiment they did. Check it out.
We had good control of the environment, but not enough to aggravate the performance. Like if you had cameras, you're aggravating it.
Mm-hmm. So the ball and jack experiment, can you explain that for our viewers?
So we got good-sized jacks that were probably an inch square, and a ball the size of a golf ball, roughly, maybe a little smaller. And so our ranch manager and one of our security officers used the kitchen table in the double-wide trailer to set it up.
Yeah.
So they arranged them in a circle, and they put the ball in the middle of the circle.
Right.
And we took a photograph. And they weren't done very neatly. And the reason we knew that is because after they were acted upon, we saw how neatly they were set up. Okay. So they were set up so the ranch manager, security guy go outside. There's nobody else in the trailer. They wait 30 seconds and come back in. Nothing's been changed. They go back outside. They wait a minute. They come back in. Everything's changed. It's not a circle, it's a horseshoe. The ball is outside of the horseshoe. All of the jacks were paired in color. In fact, when we did the before and after photographs, I had Charles had photographs there, and I said, "Now, look at these jacks. What do you notice?" Well, he didn't make a comment too much, but I said, "Well, look, every single color is that we have pairs of colors, and they're all paired."
It sounds as if it was some sort of an effort to really communicate.
I think that's what demonstrations are. I think that you have 1,000 different kinds or 1,000,000 different kinds of demonstrations in the consciousness world, and I think all of that is a communication. It's not just, oh, here, look at me, I moved something for you. It's, I moved something, now figure out what it took to move it. Why did it move? How did it move? And so you start thinking about that and you realize, well, it's not in our physics, and it's in another dimension is interacting in our dimension. And with ease, with impunity, with ease, and any time, and very powerfully.
So there you go, a great example of an experiment done at Skinwalker Ranch by Bob Bigelow's team. I wish we had a lot more like it. I wish we understood a lot more of what went down during Bob's years at Skinwalker Ranch. So much of that is still classified and secret. We really don't have much insight into a lot of what Nids and Bass did, unfortunately. Our best insight into Skinwalker Ranch currently, of course, is the TV show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, and they're doing some amazing work. They have some terrific results, including the actual finding of a time anomaly. They've got tunnels under the ranch. They've got UFOs going in and out of the mesa, all on camera. They've got all sorts of other crazy phenomena going on there. Evidence of an actual portal or two at least. They're doing some great work out there, but I sure would like to see the data that Bob Bigelow's team in alliance with the government was able to come up with, and so far they haven't shared that with us. I guess a question is why? Is that really protected by national security interests? Is anybody really convinced that some, poltergeist and aliens or whatever is going on at Skinwalker Ranch, keeping that secret is of national security? I'm not buying that. I really wish that we could get some answers on what they found out during that time, if indeed they found out anything, because of course the phenomenon that goes on there is so anomalous, it's really hard to make sense of, which of course is why it's so much fun, right? It's the true Twilight Zone on Earth. Anyway, that's my UFO roundup for right now. I'm keeping my eyes open for more David Grush news and more news on the attacks in Peru. After the report came out about it being a bunch of miners, seems like news is kind of drying up there. And if the control group has asserted itself there, that makes perfect sense. That's what they do. That's what they want. That's what the mining story is probably meant to facilitate. But I am still trying to dig up more, and if you can find it before I do, please let me know. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below, and there are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel. I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.